Now friends, in this lecture, I will look at some of the theories of deviance. In the previous lecture, I was only giving examples of deviance and some kind of classification of deviance. Why deviant activities? This issue, why deviant activities, has been of great interest to many people for a long time. Theory means what explains something. What explains deviance at the individual level? Why does one person engage in a deviant activity? Why does one person not follow the norms? And second, if there are social reasons, what are those social reasons because of which people become part of deviance? There are many theories, and since I want to finish the discussion today itself, so I will discuss them only in brief. I will only give the ideas how different experts have looked at the explanation of deviance. Biological theories, first attempt to explain deviance was made by biologists, or those who believe that certain physical or biological characteristics of humans made them more prone to commit deviant activities. In one such effort, somebody divided people biologically into three groups. This is only an example. There are many other explanations. Endomorphs, Mesomorphs, and ectomorph. Somebody made this kind of classification. It was suggested that there are some people who are round and soft by physical constitution. There are some who are muscular and athletic type. There are some who are thin and bony type. Among them, these mesomorphs or muscular athletic type are found to be proportionately more represented among the deviants. And for them, deviants meant generally those people who are found in jails, convicted for various types of crimes. So when we look at the whole spectrum of crime or whole spectrum of deviance, including victimless crime, white collar crime, it's not convincing that this biological explanation can be true. Some people said that in those people who are found to be indulging in criminal activities, there is some kind of imbalance of chromosomes. You know that chromosomes which we get from our parents determine whole of our mental, physical, psychological characteristics. Usually women or females carry XX hormone, XX chromosomes. Males carry X and Y. In studies of criminals in the West, it was found that many criminals were found with an extra Y chromosome, criminals. And on that basis, some biologists hypothesized that criminality or criminal attitude is governed by biological properties. That if there is an extra Y chromosome, it leads to criminal tendency. Similarly, some people said that those people who have high blood pressure or who have high sugar level in their blood, diabetic patients, they are more likely to be aggressive and indulging in deviant behavior. Some physical anthropologists and biologists suggested that people with certain features of skill, nose, eyes, color, hair, indulge in criminal behavior more. Now today there is no taker of biological theory. In Russian society there were also some experiments on the basis of which they tried to identify exactly which part of the brain is responsible for criminal behavior. And once that was established, they tried to remove that part of the brain through surgical operation to make a person normal. These things happened actually. It was called lobotomy. Lobotomy was practiced to control criminality of criminal people in Russia. In Russia they could do this. In India we cannot. We are a democratic country. But this is what is meant by biological or physiological explanation of deviant or criminal behavior. The psychologists have a different route. Psychologists say, again there are so many, not one, so many psychological theories. Some socio-psychological theories will attribute deviant tendency to bad experiences of early childhood, broken homes, conflicts between parents or divorce between parents. And Freudian type of psychoanalysts, they will say that when id is more overpowering and superego means at the unconscious level influencing behavior of norms of society, that is superego. And ego is in between our taking conscious decisions. It is a pleasure seeking tendency in us. In all of us there is a pleasure seeking tendency. To explain it further, I have to go down deep into Freudian theory of Oedipus complex or Electra complex. I will not do this, I will focus more on sociology. But Freudian psychologists try to explain deviant behavior in terms of depressed superego or id being overpowering or impulse control kind of. In simple language, impulse control. There are some people who are weak in impulse control. There are some people, all of us carry the similar tendencies of pleasure seeking. But we behave normally because we are able to control our desire for pleasures and we can control our impulses. Intuitive behavior, we can control our intuitive behavior and we remain normal. But there may be some people whose superego or the influencing structure of the norms of society is not so developed that their ego is more influenced by id and they commit a deviant act. Such are psychological theories. In sociological theories, last time I had said something about Merton, according to whom the real causes of deviance lie within the social structure. And that means deviance can never be fully removed. The reason is that sometimes social structure puts so much of emphasis on certain goals and at the same time does not provide equal opportunities for all members of all social classes to attain those goals. On the one hand, there is too much of stress on attaining certain goals. R.K. Merton was more concerned with the goal of success in materialistic society of the West. But you can generalize this theory to other goals also, including the goal of transcendence or liberation or moksha or nirvana. If there is too much stress on these goals, but the members of all social classes do not have the same opportunity to attain those goals, then there will be some problem. Then people will develop new methods to attain the goals, and that will lead to anomie or crisis or deviance in society. So making a distinction between norms and values, Merton said that there are some people who conform to values as well as norms. They are conformists, usually upper middle class or upper class people. Upper class people stress success and are also able to attain success by following institutionalized means through education, credentials, investment, proving themselves. They have opportunity to prove themselves, so they can prove themselves. But there will be many others, usually from the lower classes, who have also internalized or interiorized the same value system, but they lack the means, the opportunity to attain these values through institutionalized means. So they have to find some other means, through some other behaviors, through some other means, sometimes not approved by the norms of society. They will try to attain the same success. And R.K. Merton said that they are like innovators. For attaining the same goals, they are using some other means. It's a different matter that those means are not approved by society. Then there are some others, people belonging to lower middle class, mostly the clerks type, lower division clerk type. They have already come to certain level and they know that future progress is not possible. They also know that a small mistake by them can take them to the ocean of poverty. They can lose employment. If they are found guilty of something, they can lose employment and they will become poor. They cannot maintain their present status. So these people become more concerned about the norms of society and they are not worried about the values. They are called ritualists. Ritualists means they follow the rituals, they follow the procedures. You cannot find fault of not following the right procedures for them. But they stick to procedures so much that ultimately the values are lost. Conformists, innovators and ritualists. Then there are some retreatists. Maybe at one time they conform to all norms of society, values. They were normal human beings. For some reason, some accident in life or something, they have withdrawn from both norms and values of society. Retreatists, they have retreated from the values as well as the norms of society. Alcoholics, many types of sannyasins, one can say Hare Krishnas, those who have withdrawn from society. They become retreatists. And there are others who are rebellions. Usually the rebellions come from the rising classes. So by developing this kind of classification, R.K. Merton was able to show that there is a connection between social structure and deviance. If you belong to upper classes, you are here. If you belong to lower classes, you may be here. If you belong to a lower middle class, you become a ritualist so that your present status is not lost. And you know that you cannot rise further. This is independent of the classes. And quite often rising classes behave in this manner. They are rebellious. They are working for establishing new values and new norms in society. So communists, in a capitalist society, communists can be like that. And rising classes means that in any social structure with certain amount of mobility, there are some people who are coming from lower class background to middle or upper class background. These kinds of people are found to be represented more in the category of rebellious. Rarely you find that people from the upper class become rebellious. And rarely you find that people from lower classes become rebellious. Only classes from which people who come from lower classes and have come to middle class and are aspiring to become an upper class, those kinds of people are found more in the category of rebellious. This is R.K. Merton. There are positivists also active in studies of crime. Positivists do not begin with any theory. They will develop indicators, measurements of the phenomena they want to study, collect data, analyze them statistically, and try to explain the findings of statistical analysis. In one such attempt, not yet included in sociology text, but I find this quite interesting as Emile Durkheim's study of suicide. In 2009, in a famous journal of population, it's Population and Development Review, it comes to our library, Population and Development Review. Like Emile Durkheim had studied rate of suicide. These two persons, Cole and Gramazo, they study rates of homicides. What explains homicide? So they collected data on homicide rates from all the countries for which these data were available. Market economies, socialist economies, Middle East, Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, and hypothesized that homicide rates might depend on region, region, might depend on age structure, whether age structure is young or old, degree of urbanization, whether people are living in rural areas or cities. Cities are supposed to be more prone to crime. Income inequality and poverty, degree of inequality with respect to wealth, whether more people are relatively equal or there is very high degree of inequality. whether there is poverty, level of poverty is high or low, density of population. It was hypothesized that perhaps density of population also has to do something with crime. When the size of population or density of population is low, crime is less. And when density of population is very high, as in metropolitan cities, then crime will be more. Also, ethno-linguistic and religious heterogeneity. The degree to which you find people belonging to different linguistic, ethnic and religious categories juxtaposed, living in the same society at the same time. That can also explain homicide, killing. Homicide means killing. So killing may be related to this or to education. Cole and Gramajo also made a difference between male education and female education. And governance, whether governance is good or bad, whether a country is governed well, whether it is transparent, or whether it is a soft state or weak, or governance is very poor. So they collected, first they developed indicators of each of them. Then they collected data from various sources for each and applied the standard technique of regression analysis, a standard technique in statistics, regression analysis. And what they found interestingly is that the most significant association of homicide rate, deviance, is with female education. And this was a new finding. No sociologist has ever talked about a connection between female education and crime. Crime in this context means homicide, murders. It was startling. Why should female education, when female education, not male education, female, in some of the sociological studies of this type, they use the indicator of literacy or educational achievement for the entire population. Cole and Gramajo used two indicators of education, one for males, another for females. And they found that homicide rate is significantly associated with female education. So now they start thinking, now they start theorizing, why should rise in female education lead to higher rate of homicides. So it's not country, it's not age distribution, it's not inequality, it's not religious pluralism, it's not inequality with respect to wealth, etc., etc. It is more the female education. Female education goes up and deviance increases. So they pondered on this issue. Why should we? Now whether these are explanations, so we may be convinced by these explanations, we may not be convinced. Their hypothesis is that when women, there are four reasons why women's education is associated with crime, murders. One, that when women are educated, a larger proportion of them leave home for work, and as a consequence, family suffers. Especially the young children suffer. In a nuclear family, young children suffer. To quote, strongest effects of the shift away from nuclear family-based activities appear among children. The greater the ratio of women in the labor force to households, the greater the rates of child homicide, a result also found by some other persons, unquote. So, higher female education, more participation of women in economic activities, nuclear family suffers, children suffer, and homicide among children, violence against children, violence by children, that increases. Second hypothesis, that when women become more competitive in the job market because of education. So wages of males decline. There is more unemployment among men, and wages among men decline. Since women are working more in those occupations where wages are relatively low, so those males who are working in low wage occupations suffer more. Means when female education rises, those males who are working in less prestigious, low income occupations, they become unemployed or their wages suffer. Their wages decrease further. Already their wages are low, and these wages decrease further. I am quoting, increased female employment lowers wages as a result of the increased supply of labor. Low wages and crime are known to be related. And because women tend to have less labor market experience than men, or because they are discriminated against, they tend to enter the job market lower down on the earnings distribution, putting downward wage pressure on males in lower skilled jobs who are more likely to be on the margin of crime. And these low wage earners who suffer because of female education, they take to crime. The third hypothesis is that rise in female education increases age of marriage. And what Emile Durkheim said, Cole and Gramajo are saying the same thing, that since unmarried persons are more prone to commit homicides or crimes of all types, they are less integrated. Unmarried persons are less integrated with the larger society. So when female education goes up, age of marriage goes up, proportion of unmarried males, unmarried females increases, and since marital status is closely associated with crime or deviance, so rise in female education will lead to more crime and more deviance. And fourth and last hypothesis, these are hypotheses. What is fact? The fact part of this research is that homicide rate is significantly associated with female education, and the direction is positive. Higher is the female education, more is the crime. And these hypotheses are attempts to explain or theorize about the crime rate. They may be wrong. The fourth hypothesis is that some men tend to be intimidated by highly educated women. In such cases, an increase in the general level of female education might increase the general level of male insecurity in society, which might tend to increase male violence. There are some other hypotheses also, but since my purpose here is only to illustrate what it means to say positivistic research, this is how positivist sociologists proceed. They will develop indicators of deviance and crime, take up a specific case of crime for which data are more easily available, more accurate data are available, and use statistical methods and explain the findings. Emile Durkheim, I have already discussed that certain amount of deviance, say 5%, is always good. It helps in redefining or clarifying the norms of society. It identifies some basic problems with the system so that corrective actions can be taken. And it can also lead to better adaptation. Sometimes today's deviance is the tomorrow's value. So sometimes deviance leads the process of social change. The examples which I gave regarding sati, female infanticide, etc., or untouchability, unseeability, too much of ritualistic type of practices among Brahmins. Swami Dayanand was a deviant that way. Swami Dayanand, the founder of Arya Samaj, was a deviant because he was a fundamentalist. He rejected Brahminical ritualistic theories and asked people to go back to Vedas and have a different interpretation of Hindu religion. He was against social evils. He was also against casteism. Now, Marxists and interaction. Interactionists have a very interesting explanation to provide. Interactionists focus on two things, some of which we have already discussed while talking about what sociology is. H.S. Baker gives more importance to labels. That sometimes certain labels are attached to certain people or groups. It may be individuals, it may be groups. And through self-fulfilling prophecy, which says, interactionist theory says, that in our real behavior in society, most of the time we are trying to actualize our self-images. That all of us have a certain image of ours. This image of ours has been developed on the basis of our reading of others' reactions towards us. If you think that you are a very miser person, or if you think you are a very compassionate person, or if you think you are bright or you are dull, or you are productive or you are careless, how do you know that? You have known these things on the basis of your reading of others' reactions towards others. These reactions include what they tell you, their gestures, your readings, you are watching TV, so many things. Your social representation, your understanding of social representations. And ultimately, you develop an image of yourself. And in action, you are trying to behave in accordance. You start conforming to your own image. So, those people who have a good level, if my image of myself is that I am a good teacher, suppose at some stage in life, say at the age of 45, for some reason, reasons may be random or whatever, it's not important why these reasons. At the age of 45, suppose I start thinking that I am a good teacher. What the interactionist theory says, what H.S. Baker says, that once a label, I know that I am a good teacher, then from the age of 45, my performance in teaching will improve. This is what it says. So the moment society attaches certain labels, now the case of criminal tribes, if you tell some people that you belong to criminal type, and by tradition, by temperament, by genes, by biological reasons, by cultural reasons, you belong to a criminal tribe. You can get satisfaction of your life only by involving in drugs, in liquor, in prostitution, in thefts and dacoities. Then ultimately a person or a group of persons will start behaving like that. Nobody is inherently dacoit or saint or leader or follower. This theory says that society attaches. So our DIG Sahab of Kanpur and the newspaper editor, when they attach a level of criminality to a list of 7 or 8 tribes of Kanpur. They do not know what they are doing. They are actually not trying to control. Maybe they think they are trying to control the crime, but they are sowing the seed of crime in Indian society. Because certain groups in society are criminalized and people will practice discrimination and prejudices against them. Then on any slight pretext, the police, the administration, the educationists will behave in a manner that the members of the tribe are forced to go back to criminal activities. So labels, H.S. Baker gives more importance to label. All of us have different labels, but unfortunately the label of criminality or deviance becomes the master label. We have so many labels. We are males, females, old, young, children, South Indian, North Indians. But unfortunately the label of being deviant becomes the master label. Deviance, a master label. So if you say that somebody is drunkard, this becomes a master label. And everybody will try to behave towards them in a manner as though these people are unadulterated, unpolluted case of being drunkard, as though they have no other interest, as though they are not males or females, as though they are not Brahmins or Kshatriyas or Dalits, or as though they are not educated or uneducated, South Indian or North Indian, Indian or American citizen. They are only deviants. They are drunkards. So being drunkard becomes the master label. And once a deviant label becomes the master label for some people, they start acting in accordance with that label, self-fulfilling prophecy. Echoing the similar ideas, E.M. Lammert makes a distinction between primary deviance and secondary deviance. Primary deviance means when the act of deviance as such is committed first time. But if you closely observe, then no act in itself gets you classified as normals or deviants. The same acts which the deviant people have performed, other people have also performed sometime or the other. There is no difference. Primary deviance, while I was talking about interactionist theory, I gave the example of some students taking liquor in the hostel. This is primary deviance. Everybody takes liquor. Most students take liquor sometime or the other. So taking liquor as such does not make one deviant. But when for this act of deviance, one student or a group of students get classified as deviant, their deviance is noticed by some powerful agency, say wardens. In textbooks of sociology, examples of conflicts or violence in different wards of cities are given. If there is a feud, a conflict, a fight between youths in the low class slum type of area, then police will immediately say they are deviant. The police can arrest them and take legal action against them. If youths are found fighting in an upper class locality, then the same police will have a softer attitude towards them. And they will say, बच्चे हैं, young हैं, ठीक है, गरम खून है, लड़ रहे हैं थोड़ा. They will not take any action. Act is same. two or more youths are fighting, same. In one context, in the context of slums or lower class colonies, that becomes a deviant act in the eyes of police department. And in the case of upper class localities, it's a youthful activity, garam khoon. But once a powerful agency which had the right to identify the case of deviance calls some people deviant, then the response of the society is such, response of society is such that people have no option other than becoming a deviant. Actually, on the basis of primary deviance, you see the difference between this theory and other theories would be that to begin with, it says there is no difference between deviants and normals. All people have same attitudes, same desire to conform to norms of society, good and bad, all kinds of tendencies, behavior patterns, all of us indulge in all types of behavior. But once a person is labeled as deviant, then society behaves towards him or her in such a manner that they are forced to accept deviant behavior as their norm. They become pakka deviant. Second, that's why this is called secondary deviance. So secondary deviance is the generation of society. Second deviance is not caused by any characteristic of deviant persons. It is caused by society. If you know that somebody has been in jail for 5-6 years, you don't want to hire his services. If somebody has criminal record, and criminal record means somebody has been in jail for 5-6 years, no one will give him a job in his house or in his industry or in his office, not even in NGO, unless NGOs are working to reform society. So what will this person do when there is no job, when society does not welcome him, when society discriminates against him? Then for the sake of survival, this person may go and join a criminal gang. The joining of criminal gang because the society reacts towards him in a certain manner. That is secondary deviance. So the onus of creating or fighting deviance, according to this perspective, this is a very humanitarian, humanistic perspective and a micro perspective. This is related to what Gandhiji used to say, that hate the sin but not the sinner. Once you start hating sinners, you create more sins in society. So we must hate sins, not the sinners. When you do not hate the sinners, then this link from sin to sin is broken. And everybody has the opportunity. You ask yourself whether you have never deviated from any norm of society. I will not be able to tell myself that I am so good that I have never deviated from norms of society. I have deviated from norms of society, and maybe if my deviations were known to wardens or others, I would not be here and I would not become a normal person. So it's not primary deviance. In primary deviance, all the students or all youthful persons indulge sometime or other. कुछ ना कुछ तो deviance करते ही हम लोग. लेकिन if somebody, a powerful person, an agency notices it, labels your activities as deviant, and society starts behaving towards you in a manner that forces you to accept the deviant path, then deviance takes place. And Marxists, you can very well understand, Marxists will focus more on law. They will say that laws are made to protect the interests of the capitalist class, and the poor people are punished for breaking the laws. So according to Marxists, most laws in capitalist society are the laws related to protection of property, and laws are made for the benefit of the capitalist class, and the offenders, the people who are punished for breaking the laws, belong to the lower classes. Many types of decisions are not taken by government which could benefit or which could result in the welfare of the lower classes, because the government does not want to annoy the capitalists. Inquiries will not be conducted, or courts can give benefits of doubt when it comes to cases of the bourgeoisie, upper class people. And when it comes to cases of poor people, so then nobody shows any sympathy. So the Marxist sociologists who study deviance make a detailed study of two things. One, what are the laws, and what is the relationship between laws and the interest of the capitalist class. And second, what is the composition of those who are punished for deviance, and what is exactly the procedure that was followed to punish those people. So class, Marxist theory as usual is based on the idea of class antagonism, class contradictions, and the poor people or the proletariats or the working classes being the victim of law, and the capitalists or the bourgeoisie developing the law. So Marxists will look at this man William Chambliss in some books where Marxist theory of deviance would be discussed. What I will say, that you take these ideas from the lecture and do some Google search, Google search. You will find lots of references: Marxist theory deviance, Emile Durkheim deviance, Max Weber deviance, William Chambliss, and you will find a lot of material. Just try to understand how sociologists of different variety, or sociologists believing in different theories, different perspectives, different models, have tried to look at the issue of deviance. For some, it is some limited amount of deviance is good. For some, it's an indication of social change. For some, it's a matter of labeling. For some, it's a matter of society reacting towards certain people labeled for deviance in a manner that they are forced to indulge in deviant behavior. There is no other option for them. And there are biological theories and psychological theories. If you have time, depending on how much interest you take in this subject, you can try to understand them.